but I will give you just a very brief introduction about the Bhagavad Gita. And first we will meditate together. And the words to the chant, for those of you who can't see them, are "Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Nothing to fear anymore." Okay. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Nothing to fear anymore. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Nothing to fear anymore. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Nothing to fear anymore. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Nothing to fear anymore. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Nothing to fear anymore. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Nothing to fear anymore. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. So let's just meditate for a couple minutes since we're starting late. Just sitting up nice and tall. Have your shoulders relaxed and your eyes closed. Your heart nice and open. Your spine long. And breathe nice and deeply. In and out through your nose, up and down your spine. Have your eyes gaze slightly upwards under closed eyelids, just helping to uplift your energy and focus everything at the spiritual eye, the seat of our highest consciousness. Slowly open your eyes. We're still trying to get Yash in here. Thank you all for being patient while we go through these technical difficulties. And so, Janet, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor and put your phone on mute so there's a little bit less disturbance going on. And then unmute when you want to talk. Yeah, so we have a little less distraction there. Very good. So the Gita, let me just okay. So the Bhagavad Gita, what this comes from, it's basically an allegory of a battle where the Pandava brothers are fighting their cousins, the Kauravas, for the right to their kingdom. That's the physical thing that's happening. But like I said, it's an allegory. And the Pandava brothers represent the positive or more upward moving qualities, and the Kauravas represent the negative ones. Hello, is this Yash? Okay, so Yash, what we have here is we have Janet on my cell phone, and then we have Judy, or at least she was, in the actual webinar, and then we have Jim watching. We might have Amy watching, maybe some other people. So we didn't all quite make it into the Hangout, but you can all send me a message when you have questions and comments. And I'm just introducing a little bit about the Bhagavad Gita, that it's an allegory for a fight for the right to be part of the kingdom, but it's also an allegory for the battle that we fight within our own selves, with the positive qualities fighting the negative qualities. And all of these things always exist within us in truth, and so it's, you know, it's relatives fighting each other in the actual battle, because that's how it feels when you're battling your own ego. And it really hurts to be trying to kill our own ego. And what's happening here is we have Arjuna, who's the leader of the Pandava army, and then Krishna is represents God, really, but he's sort of the consciousness behind it. He's the chariot driver for Arjuna, but he's going to give him the wisdom that he needs in order to fight this battle. And we have the two armies lined up, the Kauravas and the Pandavas with Arjuna, and Arjuna and Krishna drive the chariot right into the center, in between the two armies, for a moment before this battle begins, to take a look at everything that is happening. And it's almost like being inside an ocean, but then you can go to the top of the ocean wave and you can see everything that's going on. And I mentioned the ocean because Swami Kriyananda and Paramhansa Yogananda use the ocean a lot as an analogy on the spiritual path. And being a part of the ocean is kind of like being a part of the infinite consciousness. It's being one with everything. And when you're deep inside, you're not touched by the ripples that are on the surface. But there's this moment where you could go to the surface and you could see everything. So it's kind of like we're in that moment right now. And Arjuna sees all of this, and he's going, gosh, I don't want to kill my relatives, and this would be a lot easier if we didn't have to fight a battle. I mean, it's fine if we don't have the kingdom. We'll just go back to the forest where we were exiled for the past 12 years. But, you know, Krishna says, you know, you have to do this. And the thing is when Arjuna is saying that, it's like he slackens his bow, as if his spine is not straight and not long. You know, in meditation, it's kind of like this moment where you might be lazy in meditation, because this is also an analogy relating to meditation. The whole battle is. And the other thing that's interesting about Arjuna in this moment is that he represents the third chakra. There's 5 Pandava brothers. Each one represents a different chakra. The third chakra is the seat of willpower. And willpower and the third chakra, it can go up from there, or it could go down. It could go down to the more worldly concerns, or it could go up to the more spiritual concerns. And willpower could be driven by human will or by divine will. So he's in this moment now where he gets to decide which direction his willpower is going to go and how it's going to be guided. He already really wants it to be guided by Krishna, but he has to be open to everything that Krishna is going to tell him. And what happens here is an entire conversation, as if a moment in time stops, and the Bhagavad Gita begins. And Bhagavad Gita actually means Song of God. So it's almost like this beautiful wisdom just coming out in a beautiful way to Arjuna to get him ready for this battle. And this is the battle that we're all fighting constantly, every moment in our lives, against our ego. And one of the things to note about the beginning of the battle is one of the people who is blind, he asked somebody else who has wisdom, and he said, which side has won? He didn't say which side is winning, you know, which side looks like they're going to win. He asked which side has won, because it's looking at consciousness more than what is happening on the physical layer. And I think that's such a valuable lesson in life, because to be a true winner, it's how we hold ourselves inside. It's not what actually happens on the material plane. And one thing I realized recently too is that it's possible for both sides to win, even if you don't come to the same place, because if both sides are consciously working on increasing their consciousness and raising their vibration, then both sides are going to be benefiting. Both sides will feel good going out of it if they stay into how they felt inside, not what the material results are. So before I keep going, does anyone want to add anything in there? Any comments or questions? And you'll all just have to chime in your various forms of media that you're in to let me know what your questions are or your comments. Okay, so I will keep going. And then for those of you that we can hear, which might just be the two of you on the phone, I'm going to have you read parts of the Gita as we go along. And you can also make comments. And then those of you that we can't hear, if you write comments in, I'll speak them out loud so that everyone else can experience those. And Yash, I want to ask you, because you had the homework assignment, which I believe was to think of God as the doer and also offering everything that you do to God. And just so you guys know, what I want to do with this Gita study is make it come to life, make it practical, and make it something that we can work on in our daily life. So after each study, I will just offer you something that you could work on during the week. And Yash has had a month on this, so sometimes we forget at this point. But I didn't know if, Yash, you wanted to share anything about that, if you were able to dive into it. I can hear you. Can anyone else hear him? Okay, good. Good. Yeah, that was Janet on the other phone. And Jim, let me know if you can't hear. I'll repeat what Yash says. Okay, go ahead, Yash. Mm-hmm.
And sort of that sense of shared responsibility.
Yeah.
Just as I can't take full responsibility for the good that I do, but know that God is acting through me. Likewise, when I don't live up to my own standards, there's, I guess, a little bit of forgiveness in there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very, very good. And I think really that forgiveness comes, especially with what we've been learning in the Gita, that we get a greater understanding of what truth is, and so we can forgive ourselves, because a lot of these things that that we think matter really, really don't. And one of the things that we're going to get to in this text and as we go through this passage is really just this idea that God is within you and God is a part of you. You're not separate. And so when we offer it to God, what I feel like we're offering it to is like the great wide ocean. It's understanding that you're not just this one drop of the ocean, but that you're connected with everything, that there's something bigger than just this ego and this physical body. And that's what I think is helpful in understanding really the connection of God being tied within us. And let's see, Yash, since I have you speaking right now, why don't you read 515, stanza 515. So those of you who have a print book, that is on page 235 in this book, The Essence of the Bhagavad Gita. Okay.
The all-pervading is not concerned about people's sins or virtues, wisdom, although the natural state of every man is eclipsed by cosmic delusion. Mankind thus becomes bewildered as to the difference between right and wrong.
Great, thank you. And then it continues and it says, Yogananda often said, God is not worried about your mistakes. All he wants from you is your love. love him ever more deeply. And this has been coming up in some nice ways to get an understanding of this. But right now there's something going on in my life which seems like it thwarts my teacher, Swami Kriyananda, what some people are doing. And there's a knock at my door, but they'll have to wait. And so what's happening with Swami Kriyananda and this feeling of thwarting. Hang on one second. I'm in a webinar. Not mine. Okay, thank you guys. When I meditate on the situation, what I actually see is Swami Kriyananda, who's just this really, really high soul. He's not in his body anymore, but I still believe his spirit lives around us. When I meditate on him, I really see him just sending love to these people. There's no disturbance within him that these people might be doing something that kind of thwarts his genius and his capacity or ability, or the things that he created, or going against his word. It's his focus is more on just sending love and giving love, and I really feel like that's an example of what happens with God. And one of the things we want to watch here is our negative self-talk. Especially as the next statement, I'll read that in a moment, but it talks about sins. And it's funny, in dance class, in ballet class, every now and then I kind of get sick of trying to fit myself into a form. And I just say, my gosh, like, when are we going to be done with this understanding in this world of what is better or worse, or is fitting into a certain form? But what if we could watch a dance performance and appreciate it because somebody is putting out good consciousness, or somebody is sending you love, versus the expertise of what they've been able to work on physically on this plane. And I think I was rehearsing dance shortly before I was getting everything set up before the webinar for a performance this weekend. So I ran through the whole sequence of all the dances I'm doing. And as I was doing that, I was just realizing that I think one of the biggest reasons why I love performing dance is because during that moment when I'm dancing, when the music is on, and when I'm on the stage, and a lot of times I'm doing solo dances, so I have the stage to myself, there's nothing blocking my energy flow from sending love out to other people. It's something that is inherent there, and something that can be given. And it's really a nice feeling when we can have that flow. And so I understand God saying, he really just wants to be able to love us. One other interesting thing, that Asha Praver is one of the teachers at Ananda, and I've listened to her Gita talks, and she mentioned that Swami Kriyananda said that he hasn't always done the right thing, but he has done his best. And I thought that was very helpful, because I think he's really referring to he's trying. His direction is upwards. He's trying to be in a good consciousness. His intention is there to do the right thing. And he's holding his consciousness in a good place, even if he doesn't tune in perfectly to the best thing to do in each moment. So I want to put the question out to you guys, but just to tell me a little bit more as to what you think God sees as perfection. And so again, Amy, I saw your email, so if you want to communicate with me through email, you can. And then we have a couple of you on Facebook, so feel free to write in any comments you might want to add. And Yash and Janet, you can chime in if you have anything you want to say while others are writing. We are a multimedia hangout. This is kind of fun. I have 2 phones going and 2 computers in front of me. So let me read a little bit more about the text here. He used also to say, God has everything except one, loving you. He wants your love in return. Maybe some of you read my blog post where I wrote about being healed by a dying woman. And I was in a situation where I just felt very disconnected, and there wasn't this place for a nice flow there. And this woman who was dying, I went to visit her, and she was really the only person out of all the people around me who was both sending and receiving the fullness without putting any interjectories, in between the offering that I was giving. And it just made me feel so different, and it helped me through a very challenging situation. So let me see, Jim, you just wrote in, perfection in the New Testament actually means being complete. And in truth, we are always complete. So the real completeness comes in realizing that. And that's why we say that this is the path of self-realization. Yash, were you about to say something? I heard a little noise there. Okay, very good. So then the text continues that because sin springs from delusion, it does not really exist. The thought that God could be angry with anyone is itself an error indeed, an absurd one. How could the ocean depths be affected by even violent storms at the surface? So this is what I mentioned about being in the ocean depth, and you're really not affected by the little ripples on the surface. And that's part of being centered in our spine. But Yogananda, he for a long time really thought he was just supposed to be in the Himalayas, and he was constantly in this motion of trying to get into the Himalayas, and he tried when he was little, and he tried to run away, but the cops found him, and then they brought him home, and then he's trying again after he's already in his guru's ashram, Yukteswar, and he goes, and when he comes back, he's asking why Yukteswar is not angry at him, and Yukteswar is like, it's not even worth my energy to be angry. It's not worth God's energy, and God doesn't really engage in some of those human emotions that are coming up. Let's see, Jim, you wrote, being mature, being full grown, it doesn't mean not making any mistakes. Yeah, absolutely. And so like I mentioned earlier, what is more important is kind of the flow of energy. It's your consciousness. It's your magnetism. And Yogananda actually said that if you think that you're going to lose, that if you're not going to succeed at something, he says to run away, because that will inhibit your ability to keep raising your consciousness, right? That's more important than actually succeeding or doing the situation, is holding yourself in a good consciousness throughout the process. And then they have this this little story here of just a young man who's in a gang, and then he shoots someone, and then he gets shot, and so he gets sent to eternal damnation in hell. But then sent billions of years later, there's another person in this prison of eternal damnation, and he asks him, so what sin did you commit to be down here with the rest of us? And he says, well, I don't really remember, because after a certain amount of time, these things do get washed away, and we don't remember them. And there's a point in the text here about time and space being illusory, and also learning to really, really live in the present moment. And I wanted to ask you guys too, because what happens over time is that we tend to become more open, and as we work through the spiritual path, our consciousness tends to increase, and that tends to increase our intuition and our understanding of others, and really our way that we're going to respond, whether we're going to interact with love or with anger, which is what I mentioned at the beginning of that blog. So I'll just put it out to you all if you have any thoughts that you want to say about that, if you've noticed any shifts in yourself as you've been meditating and been on a spiritual path. And Janet, feel free to chime in and pull yourself off of mute if you have anything to share.
I mean, that certainly sounds like to be part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
Being a lot more in acceptance.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
There's always a lack of acceptance, absence of acceptance, wanting things to be a different way.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Janet, what were you going to say? Yeah. Well, we can't fool God. Yeah. Yeah. And Amy wrote in a message. She said, I think God sees perfection as us trying to be the best souls we can be while here on earth to others, ourselves, and the greater power. That's very beautifully stated, Amy. Thank you for writing that in. Okay. Very good. So I'll keep moving a little bit more with the text here. So while we're talking about living in the present moment, and also this idea that time is illusory, and that you could be in any moment and you could be connected with anyone at any time, there's this little exercise that the text that gives us. So if you want to just sit for a moment with a nice tall spine and close your eyes. And then it says here, withdraw deeply to your own center. Then think of someone who lived long ago and focus your mind at his center. You will see that from your center to his, a connection forms, as if your two islands, seemingly separated by ocean water, were connected more deeply by the earth underneath. So just take a moment and do visualization. Try to think of even maybe some famous person, somebody that you don't feel like you've met, but you know quite a bit about them. And have your eyes focused at the spiritual eye. Maybe you want to pick somebody whose energy you want to tune into. Everyone who is not you is simply your own deeper self, manifested differently in a different form and even at different times. Does anyone want to chime in on either their experience of doing that or the statement that I just made? Janet, you want to say something? Yash?
It's amazing. It made me feel that time is really an illusion.
Yeah. Yeah. And Amy wrote, I've definitely noticed that I make more of an effort to not judge and listen more patiently to try and understand the other person's thoughts and feelings. Absolutely. The thing I've been playing with, because I did this relationship training for a year and a half, and one of the things that really came up was this idea of mirroring, and just understanding what comes up in somebody else is really a piece of you, and it's just getting exposed through someone else. And so if we cut someone off, if we just try to push them away, it doesn't necessarily push the problem away, right? See, in the Bhagavad Gita, that's why this really has to be an allegory for the internal battle, for the battle of Mahabharata, not an external thing, because you can murder the person, but if that evil tendency still lives within you, you haven't resolved the problem. And so that's why this needs to be the battle that we fight within, and to understand that connection with everyone. And I think especially when something triggers you, I think it triggers you, it bothers you, because it's something in you and you don't want it to live within you anymore. Like, I do believe that we're naturally upward aspiring, and there's a certain point where when something is painful to be living within us, it's because we're trying to aspire to something higher than that point. When we don't have any of those disturbances within us, there isn't necessarily that aspiration to go higher, or there starts to be more. I think that's one side. The other side is that we have full self-acceptance, and so it doesn't bother us that somebody is doing something that's a negative quality in ourselves, because we've accepted that that is a part of us as well. But hopefully we've gained enough control to decide what direction our energy is going to move from there. And then
Other people in time, we can also make very powerful connections with our own lives long ago. And when things are unresolved, things from long, long ago can have a much stronger impact on my life, I find, than, something that happened yesterday.
yes, yeah, there's a lot of things that we don't always know where it comes from. But there's something there. I remember growing up, I was afraid of dogs, and that was when I started to believe in reincarnation, because I realized, even as a kid, nothing had happened in my life yet that would give me the reason to have such a distaste towards dogs. And so I thought it must have been something I was born with. Thus, there must have been a life before this where that challenge had developed, and then I just carried it forward into this life. And the text continues, a sense of the oneness of all life helps the meditating yogi to approach God without fear or tension, to relax completely in divine love. Whatever happens in your life, you are one with the great ocean of truth. Nobody, however viciously he treats you, can take away your love for God, or in all eternity, God's love for you. God and God alone is your true treasure. I have this this little story of one time I was being led in a visualization as part of a meditation course. And oh, Jim, you were afraid of dogs too. Thank you for sharing. But I was doing this meditation, and we were supposed to send healing energy to somebody and sort of work on our relationship with them. And I picked somebody, and I was started to do it, but there was somebody else that I was having conflict with in life, and it felt like he was pulling himself into that space and into that situation, and you really, really wanted to be a part of this interaction, and it didn't feel safe to really bring him in, and so I was trying to push him away, and then the teacher who was leading the visualization, she said, "Okay, now you can pick someone else, to come in there, someone that you have conflict with." And this person, I felt like they're still trying to push their way into my visualization. So I just said, "Okay, I'll let you in, and I'll just put up a boundary, or a block if something happens that I don't like." And so I'm trying to send him energy. And instead, I could feel him trying to pull energy from me. And I was trying to say to him, this is supposed to be me sending you energy, not you stealing from inside of me. And he wouldn't stop. And then I realized, just in that moment, I remembered this idea that people can take whatever they want from you, but they can't take your soul. They can't take your true essence. They can't take your love for God. We have the power to remain in that state no matter what somebody else does to us. And so I let him just go for it. And it was sort of like this, like he groveled and grabbed what was inside of me. And then I just said, okay, now you have it, go. And it was funny. I actually felt a little bit better. Like somehow he must have taken out something bad in me, maybe the part of me that was attached or connected with him in a negative way. And you can see him walking away, but looking back, because he realizes that, yeah, he got that thing, but he didn't get what he wanted either, which is that true essence of happiness. And there's another story I'll write up in a blog at some point soon, which is a visualization that I had when Israel and the Gaza Strip were in battle with each other, and just about how there were these kids and these people kind of caught in the middle of the situation where they were likely going to get killed either from one side or the other. But at this point, it seemed as if their consciousness, karmically, they didn't need to be in this situation anymore, but they were stuck. And it just, hit me that really their only way out was up, was just to understand where our true inner nature comes from, and that we don't need to be attached to anybody else in life, to the functioning of our physical body, for injury or death, but to really think of going into the light. And there may be, it's such a horrible, horrible situation, but I think that there may have been some people in that situation who became fully enlightened, because that's the only way, if you know how to do that, to be able to survive happily in such a situation. And every now and then I hear stories of people who've been prisoners of war, who have, tried to do the same thing, who've learned to love. There was even just a story of this man who was so, beaten down and tortured as he was a prisoner, and he just, was at his wit's end, and he just was saying to God, there's nothing left, or what do I do here? And it was just all of a sudden God infused him with all this energy. So when the person came who's normally attacking him, when he came again to do it, he just said to him, "There's nothing you can do to me. There's nothing you can take from me." Because he really felt that state of consciousness. And in that moment, the officer, the person who had captured him, let him go, because there's nothing he could do. So what's the point of continuing to play this game? And if you want to chime anything in there? Since I've been talking for a bit.
I was in a sort of like a job interview, and it was around weekly counseling, and so the person was asking me about, some of my own grief experiences, and I felt a little uncomfortable because my most powerful grief experience is actually from a life very, very long, long ago.
Mm.
It's been interesting to me, though, that something so long ago and many lifetimes ago could actually have a stronger emotional impact on me now and all the other experiences that I've had in this lifetime. So I think for me it was a really powerful example.
Yeah.
What you were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, good. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else? Before I keep going, I just love this book because there's so much meat, so much to understand, and it's written so beautifully. I don't always have us read as much text as we are with this section, but it's very rich. And the next part, it says, the person living in delusion cannot banish that delusion by discrimination alone. For his mind is already hypnotized by the seeming reality of that which he wants to dismiss. But by offering it up to God, God then, in his infinite divine compassion, will send the seeker an enlightened guru whose liberated consciousness will lift him out of the mire he struggles to escape. Jim, maybe you wrote to me the exact verse that this is referring to, where there's a story of this man who wants to kind of cast Satan or the devil out, and he throws this magic powder out there, but Satan says to him, in the moment that you cast that out, I got into it and I interrupted that process, because that man was only using his own consciousness, and it wasn't high enough to overcome this negative tendency. And so this, part of the understanding here, and this is especially when we're beginning on the spiritual path, is to grab something that is higher than ourself, whether it's a book, whether it's music, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a technique that you learned from a really high soul, or company of people who you feel have a really strong consciousness. But it's also goes with the statement that I put on Facebook a little while ago, that you can't solve a problem at the level that it's at. And we have to shift the consciousness to something higher than what the problem is at, right? Then we overcome it. Then we find a resolution to it. And Lahiri Mahashaya, any question that people had asked him, he would always say, do more Kriya Yoga. That was always his, his answer to people's questions. Was just about getting ourselves to the right level of consciousness. Then we can resolve the conflicts that are going on in your lives. And or what some people do is, like, they keep photos of their guru around. And I knew one person, she kept lavender around her whole place, because she was told that lavender, the smell is there to signify remembering your guru. So she put it all over so she could remember her guru. And one little case in point of understanding this idea of how your vibration gets raised when you're working with other people. But Asha described it when she was explaining the story, and I have the same experience, because on my own, I don't feel like I have the best ear to hear music and sounds and tones and understand it. And I don't even know if I always hear it when I'm singing with the choir. But I can tell the difference in my own voice when I'm singing one of the choir songs alone and when I'm singing it with the choir. Somehow these people who have the greater understanding of how to sing it, I'm able to tune into that, and my voice just gets even better. I could feel the difference in myself and my consciousness and the feeling of the way that it comes out. And the other thing that's very interesting about looking at these understandings is because I don't know if any of you have sort of noticed this, but monasteries are kind of getting out of style. If you look at the Catholic monasteries, there was a time where people needed to just lock them up in the monastery, and that was it, because the environment around them, if you study the yugas, you'll know more about this, but we're in a different age and a different consciousness right now, and we're in a higher consciousness than when a lot of these were being developed. So people needed to isolate themselves because the world around them, it would be too easy for the world around them to bring them down. And now we're in an age where we can mix a bit more, and we won't be pulled down as much. And it becomes more about an understanding of inner renunciation, of what is going on inside your being, rather than what you're doing. What consciousness are you in? Where does your loyalty lie? How can you really give yourself to God? And so I wanted to throw this idea out to you so that you can take this home, and maybe this is even the thing we'll be practicing for the next week. But I want each of you to think of maybe 3 things that you can incorporate into your life, or things that you've already incorporated that are something that bring you to a slightly higher place than where you are. And of course, coming to this this online program is one of them, because this book is divinely written. I didn't mention it in the beginning, but when Swami Kriyananda wanted to write down this book, he had worked directly with Yogananda in editing his original writing, but he didn't have access to any of that material because it belonged to that organization, the Self-Realization Fellowship, and so. what happened was, I'll get to your point in a moment, Jim. But what happened was that he saw in a vision, the room that this material was kept in was in a skylight, and literally, like, he had Yogananda say to him, look for the skylight. And somehow he just tuned in through meditation, and he wrote this entire really thick book in 3 months. So I do feel like it really, really comes from a very divine place, and I feel that when I read it, I feel a sense of upliftment. Jim, you wrote the comment, environment is stronger than will, and I want to say that for that is the safe way to think in life, that environment is stronger than will. Your safer bet is to do that rather than mix with things that have the potential to bring you down. But it's sort of, once we are really, really, really fully realized, then environment doesn't have an impact on us. And the environment that we have in the world today, is not as bad as when we needed to completely lock ourselves up in the monastery. So maybe it's a little bit different, like your social environment are people who have a consciousness that feels uplifting, but you could still go to the grocery store, in the gas station and mix with anyone in the world and not get completely pulled by them. So we at least have enough power within these short interactions to be able to maintain that state that we're trying to attain or to hold and realize within ourselves. Okay. Janet, do you want to share what helps bring you upliftment in your life?
For me, it's starting out what is, like, the concept of someone is starting out what is my issue here, instead of spending all my time thinking what they are doing.
Mm-hmm.
And figuring out what's going on in me. And I've done things in my house where I just go and be.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's connecting with God, with who I really am.
Yeah.
And then it just gives me such a different perspective. And the favorite thing to do is when something happens with you, like 15 years, and I saw it and several years ago, but it's like, oh, that's just and all that stuff, just love them,
Mm-hmm.
But then when it really got it, someone be like, you know what, I'm just going to stop looking. And then
Yeah.
I'm thinking about what I said, and yeah, that's what we need to be doing, because when we do that work, we not just with ourselves as well.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point. That that it is within us, but we have to call into the higher part of ourself, into the God and into our true nature, and not our ego side. And then I do think there still is that potential within our own selves, but we have to know how to tap into that higher self within us. But yeah, that's a really good point, Janet. Yash, do you want to add anything?
No, I don't have anything to say.
Okay, but hopefully you have your things in mind that help you uplift your consciousness. So let's see. Well, we have 7 more minutes, so we can still do a couple more. These stanzas, there's no explanation for each of them individually. They kind of run from one to the other. And what I thought we would do is, since we only have two other speaking people besides me, maybe we'll have Janet. Why don't you read 3 of the stanzas, 5, 16, 17, and 18, and if you have any comments about them, then go ahead and add that in, after you read each one.
Okay. So 5:16.
Mm-hmm.
And those, however, who have finished ignorance by wisdom, the truth shall shine forth like it. How do you say that word?
I don't know the correct pronunciation, but effulgence or effulgence,
Okay, sun.
like the sun. Yeah.
Those who have banished ignorance by wisdom, the truth shall shine forth like the sun.
Yeah. Good.
In 5:17, their thoughts emerged in that one. Their souls united with it.
That's what I was saying about, I mean, the really, really enlightened person, there's no return. But there's going to be all these points where we have the potential to go down from wherever we went up until we're really, really there. And then I think when what we know of in this plane of when we're really, really there, that there's things beyond that even. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It is possible that you never, ever, ever go back down. I just, you know, I think if there's still some pieces in there, then if you practice Kriya Yoga, then it's sort of like, I like to say, you Kriya it away. You don't have to experience it in life again. It does disappear. But sometimes if there's just a little piece left, something might happen in your life which sort of pulls you down into that place again. But then it tells you, oh, okay, this is still existing in me. I need to put out even more energy and more effort to overcome this. And I just say this because, you know, I've been here on this spiritual path and in such a dedicated, focused life for quite a few years. And then every now and then, you know, recently something hit me again. And it brought up something where I thought I was done, but then something happened and it's like, oh, it's not completely done. I need to put out even more energy and see if I can get the last tendrils of this that's left within me completely gone. But I think there's just a great trust though that we are headed in that direction, and if something is left, it's just going to be revealed so that we can overcome it. Yeah. Good. You want to read one more, 518? Yeah. 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 Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and you know, there's a situation that I'm in, and there's you know, which I'm not comfortable with, and there's two sides of it. There's one part where I say, these are the things about me that I could keep working on. And there's another part that says, I have a different aspiration now that's going to take me away from this. And you know what, I don't have to stay there in order to work through all these things. You know, I can acknowledge that there's still things I could perfect in the situation. But whatever it is that God really needs me to work on and work out in the material plane, he will just bring that to me again. And I'll still get that opportunity, even if I move to a different situation. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Good. And there's Asha Praver made this statement: spiritual progress is gradually refining our inner nature until no sense of separation remains. And it's that separation, you know, where we see those differences, where we have the judgments. You know, Amy, you wrote about having judgments, where we feel challenges with other people, and the more and more we progress, you know, the less those things come up, the more united, the more we want to turn to love versus the separation that comes up. So we are at 9 o'clock. I want to just say again that I really, really appreciate all of you, your patience in the beginning with trying to figure out how to log onto the system with the Google Plus. this isn't the first time I've actually had challenges with it, but I was hoping it would be easier this time. So I might need to look into something else and see if I can afford some software. Otherwise, we might be stuck with the Google Plus again next time. And I want to open the floor to see if any of you have any other last comments or thoughts. And I do recommend that you take the idea going into the next week of just thinking about, you know, any moment where you are in a consciousness where you feel like isn't your fullest potential, where you want some upliftment from that, and think of what it is that you're going to pull in to help shift you above your consciousness, above where you are. So Jim, you wrote a message in. This will be really cool when we get the voice thing worked out. I agree, Jim. Good energy here. People are willing to share. Yes, it's wonderful to have you all share and be really open, especially when we're all on all these different devices, for sure. Yash, you want to say something to help close us here? And Amy, you can write something in through email. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, very good. Very nice way to say that, up level. Janet, you want to chime in with any last points here? Okay. If you guys want, I mean, those of you who couldn't see, I can send you the YouTube link. I don't know if it's, you know, if you want to just rewatch this or if you want to see things, but you're only going to see me because nobody else is visible in the Google Hangout. And I think you all know what I look like, but just let me know. Yep. Thank you. No, I really appreciate all of your patience. And I had another technological difficulty. A couple of people were able to give the donation through PayPal, and then it seems to have stopped working. So if you had trouble through PayPal, I did write to them, so I'll see if I can get that resolved. And in the meantime, I can take your credit card if you do want to offer a donation, and do that through just through my what is it called, my little slider thing that I have, and I can just take a donation straight through credit card. And mm-hmm. Yeah, you could do pay with PayPal or with credit card, but that's where 2 people were successful and 2 people were not successful. They got an error message returned saying there's something wrong with the seller's email address, and I mean I don't know why that was all of a sudden happening. Maybe it's just something wrong with PayPal. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it probably is. That is part of the challenge with Google Plus. You're not the first person that's had that issue. and it's just something that's hard to keep track of. And and I'll be honest, it was actually my fault because I have 2 different accounts, and I sent you guys the first invite from one account and the second one from the other account. And so Yash, somehow it was logging you into the first account and not the account where the hangout on air was actually happening. But Amy wrote in a note, "This was great. Thank you so much for your time, stories, and insights. I look forward to further exploring whatever part of the Gita you tell us to. Have a great night." And I wanted to ask, there was one other lady on the East Coast who wanted to attend, but it was too late for her. And so if it's okay with you guys, I would like to send her the YouTube link of this discussion. You can just email me or send me a message. If you have any issues with that, let me know. And then we'll see what we can do for technology next week, but we'll plan for the same time next week. It's probably going to have to be the same technology for now. And then I might look into finding a different time because I have about 3 people, at least on the East Coast, who are involved or want to be involved, and it would be easier for them if it's a little earlier. So we'll see what we can do. So thank you guys very, very much. And just really keep in mind taking the Gita into your daily life, and just know that there's a root and a core to all truths and universal wisdom. Om and many blessings.
Thank you, Avatar. I look forward to meeting the rest of you more fully in the future as well. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Yash. Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Jim, Amy, and Judy if you're still watching, and Sherry if you see this later. Bye-bye.